Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Power Corrupts event in which the Corrupt Magus is added to the game. So let's get into that. So as far as this event week for Gems of War, we have Red Purple Arcane Trait Stones. There is a lot of things to use Red Purple Arcane on. Some of them include for early game Cursed Effigy, Horned Asp, Miststalker, Rock Troll, of course Sunbird, and Wisp, and later on in the game, Azarus, Fizzazorn, Drowned Sailor, Queen Titania, Umbra Wolf, and Dragon Soul as some of the better options. As far as this troop itself, it is not one of those better options. It is very, very useless. However, it is the first of two troops to use specifically the new term of Eliminate that was added in this most recent patch. Is basically another word in order to confuse all of us on what on earth things mean. And basically what Eliminate means is it's stat reduction. So when it says eliminate 29 from 2 random skills, it just means reduce 29 from 2 random skills. It just means stat reduction, like any of the other troops that say stat reduction. For whatever reason, they're calling it eliminate now. So now all the newer cards will mention eliminate. However, all the older cards will still mention stat reduction, like Azura and stuff like that. So really, really annoying in that regard. But other than that, this troop is just useless. It's not really going to be do much. Just a curse into a slate stat reduction. And it does that for 9 mana, but it has no board control, has no follow-up, has okay traits, and just overall not really going to be used ever. You might as well just use Azura, which you get for free from completing out the Merlantis Kingdom. So you could pretty much ignore this thing, other than for the sake of upgrading it for Kingdom upgrades. One nice thing that this Kingdom or this update does end up bringing on this Monday event week is we do reach up to 13 stars on Karakoth. So that is now possible. This is pretty noteworthy since it's can get its +1 magic. It ends up giving quite a bit more stats in that regard, since magic is the most important stat you can ever get off of a kingdom. And other than that, we get a little bit more tribute reward and tribute chance, which will help out with your hourly tributes. So overall, pretty nice. Mostly just for that magic you'd want to go for. It does require owning the mythic though, which you would need to go open event keys for if you don't already have. Event keys for the most part this week are going to be pretty underwhelming. As far as what is available, it is most things that are underneath this Karakoth page. But one thing that you should note is that Zugoth is not obtainable through event keys. It doesn't matter how many event keys you throw, you will never be able to obtain Zugoth from event keys. Do be mindful of that. The only mythic you'd be able to get from opening event keys right now would be Vashtagan, as well as throughout the rest of this week. So do be mindful of that if you're trying to get the last mythic for that. Is you will have to go and craft Zugoth through the Soulforge and not through event keys here. But other than that, every single other thing here is in the drop table other than the Mizmer, which is from Guild Wars. But most things from this kingdom, as you can see, are pretty useless. Not really anything relevant from this kingdom for the most part, other than maybe Wall of Thorns, but that's a really low rarity that you likely already have. So yeah, pretty good week to just ignore event keys. The only way only reason you'd ever really go for it is if you really wanted that Vashtagan in order to get the +1 magic off of Karakoth, if you haven't already. That's about the only reason you would. Otherwise, it's a great week to just skip opening event keys. As far as our weekly event objectives, we have 10% to all Karakoth, as well as 10% to all Mystics, which does have a little bit of overlap for 20%, but not much. And we also get 40 souls whenever you use the new troop in PvP or Explore. However, the 40 souls is pretty trivial, and so is our troop, so you might as well just completely ignore this, because 40 souls is not going to make a big difference, and he will completely hinder your team in any context you use them in. Don't use them. Definitely worth not using them. So, as far as invasions, we do have an invasion week this week. We ended up getting a weapon that is pretty much going to be useless at the moment. It's just the Karakoth weapon of this weapon type that it's pretty common these days, where it just does 2 mana accumulations based on a specific typing and boosts damage based on that typing. You guys pretty much know how these work by now. This one is just simply for Mystics rather than anything else that we've had it for in the past, and it ends up doing yellow and purple, which are pretty decent colors for Mystics. However, there is no exceptionally good synergy for them at the moment, but as time goes on, like many of these weapons, they could theoretically become potentially good as more viable options and troop combinations get added to the game. As it currently stands, I would say it's a pretty underwhelming weapon, but again, that could change into the future, and you still likely want to get it just for completionist purposes and to have it in case it ever does become good. Other than that, as far as going through these towers, early on I'll be using this for most battles and then switching over to replacing out the Dragon Soul with the Invasion Troop. Invasion Troop does have a double Eliminate on it, which ends up helping it out quite a decent bit, since that will be a double stat reduction while still doing the really high amount of damage to a single target. So it has a lot of disable that I can end up doing. It's stat reduction a little bit more useful in something like this kind of game mode compared to that of, let's say, like raids, because raids, reducing the stats of the Zugolf wouldn't really matter, since the only thing that really matters on it, or that's devastating on it, is its instant kill. Whereas the thing that actually kills you off these towers are not their instant kills because they don't have any, more so their actual stats. So if you end up removing their stats a little bit, it ends up making quite a bit of difference to assist you in not losing. Well, to go and get the kill there, and it looks like we should need 2 more casts this into pretty much anything. We'll end up killing it. Obviously, we have a lot of mana loop, probably gaining max soul capacity almost every single battle, and get to passively gain some souls while farming everything else. And that's pretty much all we have to do for invasions. Probably an easier invasion week due to the invasion troop. It didn't show yet because of that, but as far as the invasion troop, it deals damage to an enemy. This is the standard amount of extra based on its ascension, up to 5% if it's all the way out of mythic. And it has a double eliminate. This is not increased based on ascension, but it's a double eliminate to their skills. They'll do 2 random skills on them, and that could be, I believe they will always hit 2 different ones, so I'm not 100% certain because I haven't actually used it that many times to know for sure. But regardless, they'll eliminate 2 random skills on it, so it could be like magic HP or something similar to that, on top of the damage that you're already doing off of your ability. And do keep in mind, eliminate and stat reduction, which are the exact same thing, can kill. So for example, if an enemy is at only 20 HP remaining, but we were about to hit all on their barrier, or on their shield, I mean, the stat reduction of that, or 35 if it hits on HP, would still kill them. It can reduce something down all the way to 0 in order to kill. So do be mindful of that. But that's what he ends up doing. Other than that, we have ourselves quite a few things happening on this week. On today, Tuesday, we have ourselves the Faction Assault, which after this video goes up, I should be streaming pretty much the entirety of it. I will be doing the Faction Assault for Warrens all the way to level 500 Pure Faction today. So we'll be doing that soon after this video, or even literally during this video if you're watching it. Other than that, Pet Rescue Wednesday, we're going to be having the Blue Guild War Pet, or the 4x Blue Pet, go up with Blue Tower of Doom and Blue Guild Wars. On Thursday, we're going to be having a class event for Sorcerer Class. Sorcerer Class, pretty underwhelming class, so they might be reworking them into the future. And on Friday, we have 2 new things, really busy Friday. This Friday, we're going to be getting not only a new Mythic, as the first Friday of the month, so we get every first Friday of every month, but the other thing that we're also going to be getting is a completely new faction. So I'm actually going to be doing 2 pure factions this week. But yeah, we're getting a completely new faction specifically for Divinian Fields. So if you've been wanting to put your yellow deeds somewhere, that'd be a good place to do so. Speaking of yellow deeds, one thing that I didn't get to mention, well, I mentioned on stream but not in a video, was yesterday was blue deeds. So don't forget, as far as blue deeds, your location where you might want to use that are Stormheim and Merlantis. If you haven't already put your blue deeds into a location, I would say to go into Stormheim. The reason for this is the team bonus for this place is a little bit better. And in 2 months from now, or 3 factions from now, which is 2 months from now, or 2 months in a week, we will be getting a Stormheim faction. And with that Stormheim faction, will obviously be fairly viable to go and have it already pre-upgraded. So you get the 50% extra stats for when you go through the entirety of the Stormheim Delve. However, at this current moment in time, Merlantis is the best place to put it. Merlantis bonus is still a pretty decent bonus, plus ends up helping with Sea of Sorrows. But if you have not put into Merlantis, I would say go all in to Stormheim. But since I've already gone into Merlantis and anyone else who already has, I would say just finish out Merlantis and then go into Stormheim. Otherwise, go all in on Stormheim, as that is the upcoming faction in about 2 months from now. So do be mindful of that with your blue deeds, either or. Next thing, the Soulforge. Forgot to mention. So, Soulforge, as far as things that are craftable this week, the most noteworthy one that is currently craftable is Farish Ra. Unfortunately, soul farming was nerfed this most recent patch. However, he is the best option in the entire game for soul farming. And there might be some changes soon that might be making soul farming better. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But yeah, next patch is likely bringing something in. I won't say exactly what, but you probably want to have a Farish Ra if you don't already. So if you still want to soul farm, yeah, you'll be able to again soon. So yeah, go get Farish Ra, because this will be the last time prior to next patch where you'd have the opportunity to get him, because he's probably not going to be available for months. So if you have the diamonds for him and you don't have a copy of him, I would highly advise getting him if you still need souls. So do be mindful of that. Other than that, yeah, nothing else really happening much. Every single other thing within the Soulforge pretty underwhelming right now. Maybe Queen Aurora, though generally Possessed King in most situations is better than it. However, it is nice for all of its +1s. Its most noteworthy purpose is probably for 10 mana cost troops, things like Apothecary and Valkyrie and stuff like that, and Green Seer, where you can end up just doing their +1s in order to feed them without having to change your banner to something else. So it's pretty good for that. However, in most situations, you don't really bother using Queen Aurora much. So one of the mythics that, well, still useful, isn't really going to be as useful as something like a Fairish Ra or a Possessed King, but still something to consider if you still needed something and didn't have any other option here. But those were probably the biggest two. Fairish Ra obviously being the biggest. And other than that, really no weapons. We have ourselves the Garland Staff, which is just for today. That is for the Faction of Warrants. But the only one that we have going on through all the week, other than the new one that just came in that you can just buy by throwing gems on the invasion event, is the Doomed Cauldron. The Doomed Cauldron is extremely underwhelming, similar to all of the Doomed weapons that ends up giving an HP buff. They may mention in the past that they're likely going to buff all 6 of these weapons, however they have yet to. Hopefully next patch will possibly do that, though we don't really know. And yeah, it might. So it's still worth considering to get these upgraded, or to get these just for completionist purposes, and the fact that when they get buffed, they might become really good. And if you don't have them, you're going to want to have them, because if they do get buffed, they might actually be desirable to use. But as we currently don't really know what the state of them is, I would still say to get them. Just because if they do end up being good, it'd be quite unfortunate to have to wait like a whole almost like 7 months or so just to be able to get it. And purple is a pretty decent color to have an HP buff on, as there aren't too many purple options that have a HP buff if they make it like a lot stronger in some way in that regard. But yeah, bottom line, get it, and it might be buffed into the future. However, at this current moment in time, it is 100% useless. But that is the only alternative weapon that is actually craftable, as far as that will only be available for this week and won't be available for several months after. Other than that, let's go over several teams real quick. So, as far as invasion teams, I did want to mention a few other ones. This was the main one that I showed, of course, the one that I just showed for the battle for invasions. Next one is for when we transition over to 4 towers and a little bit later into 4 towers. Very similar team, except we end up replacing our Dragon Soul for the invasion troop. We don't use red with this, however, we can just set a minus red banner and utilize the minus red in order to get a little bit more green. And just spam the Aramis and just spam our other 3 mana accumulations while chipping them down and just keep tailing it out with the invasion troop. Other than that, if you have absolutely nothing to use, one thing that you can consider is this team. Mountain Crusher, which most people have, Azura, which you get for free from completing out Merlantis Kingdom, Harpy Mage, which might be slightly harder to obtain, however, just throwing about 200 shards or so at the faction of Stone Song Aerie in the Underworld at those portals would likely get her. You would need to go and get her fully traded to be able to fully utilize her for the 75% mana accumulation, but definitely a nice utility troop to have. It's kind of like a little mini Mountain Crusher in a way, because it has a mass explosion while also having a Dust Storm attached to it. Not exactly the same as Mountain Crusher, but it has 75% mana start, and it has a chance for summon there, and it has the full board clear. So somewhat similar to Mountain Crusher, just not exactly the same. It's still a good option nonetheless, and it synergizes with Mountain Crusher since it doesn't share any colors with it, oddly enough. So ends up working out quite decently. Other than that, as far as other teams that we have, Warren Doves. As far as lower level, of course, Key Team. There are 3 potential rooms, or actually 4 potential rooms. Or sorry, 3, I was right the first time. That can be Cedric within this faction, and having Key Team for the earlier battles. Ends up working out pretty well. You just go through Greed, get your keys down, and just get max gold every single battle while farming a lot of gold, and technically maps, but mostly gold, while getting through delves at a decent rate. Ends up working out pretty decent. Other than that, as far as the Sorcerer Class event, easiest way to do this is Wall of Tentacles. Spam 3 Wall of Tentacles, get full mana, or not full mana, get 10 mana on the first one, which is full mana, and then 5 mana on the second one. And then once you reach that point, you can just throw a Wall of Tentacles, Wall of Tentacles, Wall of Tentacles, weapon, Wall of Tentacles, Wall of Tentacles, Wall of Tentacles, weapon, and keep repeating with the triple Wall of Tentacles into weapon. You would want to use any weapon that is around the 14 or 15 mana cost. That does amp damage to all enemies. There are several options that you can use for this. For this one, I just ended up putting in the weapon for... Oh, what class was this for? Why do I keep forgetting? It's the Drifting Sands Hero class. Why do I keep forgetting what it's called? War Priest? No. But it's the... it was the Drifting Sands Hero class, I'm pretty sure. But you can use any of the AoE weapons that are around 15. So you can use Black Manacle, you can use Summer's Fury, any of them that are like that. This just happens to have the highest damage per cast on it, and while not blocking purple, because you generally don't want to block purple, as you want to get 15 mana, 10 on the first one and 5 on the other, as quickly as possible. So you can just do your Wall of Tentacle spam, get your weapon up, cast your weapon, rinse, repeat, keep doing that over and over again until you win. And that's all you really have to do for this event, and you can do it pretty much with any hero class, as your starting mana and your class in general won't really make too big of an impact. However, whatever class you do pick, you generally want to make sure your weapon is associated to that magic. In this case, that is not the case, but because this is purple magic, and that's obviously not a purple weapon, as I didn't want to block it off on purple. But generally, if you are doing a hero class there that you want to level, you do generally want to match up the weapon with the hero class's +5 magic that it has, as it would just help speed up the event just a little bit quicker than it would otherwise. And that is everything that I wanted to go over. So if any of you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Also, if you guys have any video suggestions as well, feel free to leave it. I am pre-recording a bunch of stuff, as I will be gone for most of the middle to late of October, from around the 13th to about the 27th or so, give or take a little bit. And I am going to be pre-recording, hopefully enough that I have something to go out pre-scheduled every single day. Some of that will be 4.6 related stuff. We don't know exactly when 4.6 is coming out. Ideally, it will launch slightly before I go on that little bit of break. However, we do not know definitively when it is happening. We know that 1 week from today, which is the 8th, that we're getting the preview for next patch, which means it could literally be that night if it goes well, though it could be like weeks after that. So we know that sometime this month, most likely, we're getting the patch. Earliest being October 8th, but we don't really know exactly when. So I don't know exactly how much to pre-record specifically for next patches. There's a lot to go over next patch. But if you still have any other suggestions, feel free to leave it. Because, yeah, pre-recording a bunch, and do want to get out a bunch of content for it. We'll basically have a guide video every single day for about 2 weeks once that actually reaches. Unfortunately, we won't have streams at the time, but we'll have some pretty big streams, like the one today, going over parody of War and Spear faction and stuff like that. But anyways, thank you all for the feedback, and I will see all you later. Goodbye, everyone!